Welcome back to another episode of Chasing Labels. Spine number 39, guys. You're getting that first layer of your shelf filled up with our episodes. I'm Stephen Billings, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Doing okay. Yeah, we're up to 39. It seems like the 20s and 30s are going a lot slower.
That's how it is in age, in real life, too.
Isn't that the way life is?
I don't even remember my 20s that much. I mean, it's gone.
Yeah, it's kind of a blur now, and I didn't even do anything exciting. I just kind of lived. I just watched movies.
You just watched movies.
That's all I've been
you
doing.
lived through the screen. But that's how that's what we like. That's what we like. I'm trying to blend a little bit of real life into it now. I got a kid on the way. So I'll start living the movies that I've watched so many times.
Nice.
But
Mr. Mom is on the way.
Mr. Mom is on the way. Yeah, I'll be holding a baby trying to do this podcast soon.
You need to recreate the movie poster for that movie at one point.
I will. That's a good idea. I will do that. We'll do that for the podcast, and it'll get viral, and then I'll be embarrassed for the rest of my life.
That'll be the header. Yeah, that'll be the profile.
And then my
picture.
kid will sue me years later, like the Nirvana kid. Like he's like, you
didn't have to bring that into
I didn't
it.
even want to be in. So of course, like usual, like a lot of times, we have a great guest on this week, and
we do.
This is no exception. She is the editor-in-chief of Diabolique Magazine. She's done tons of audio commentaries, video essays, written essays, whether it be like for Fangoria or she'll tell you all this stuff. She's going to take us through her journey. So with us is Kat Ellinger. How you doing?
Hello. I'm always uncomfortable talking about myself, though. I'm usually talking about other people, and I'm comfortable with that, like other people's work.
That doesn't sound like you. That's like before the show, you would not shut up. You kept talking about yourself, and I was like, look, Kat, let's leave this for the episode. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't do that.
Very true.
But we're very excited to have you. And Andrew, you're the guy that always starts with the question that's the most important. Like, where did the love of film go? You do it.
Yeah, that seems to be my thing on this show. Is I always start out with getting into the origin stories of our guests and where they started with their love of movies. Because not everyone starts at the same point. Some people start super early. Some people start later. All that matters is they come to movies whenever they do. So, Kat, at what point did your love of movies start?
Oh man, I can't remember a time when I didn't love movies. I can't, honestly. I talk a lot about this in my own work, but I grew up, I'm working class, grew up on a council estate in England, late 70s, early 80s, just very boring. Like, absolutely nothing to do, but just at the point when home video was really starting to take off. So that's all we did, was watch films, like, all the time. Video, whatever was on television at the time, although we only had like 3 channels in the UK and then 4 by the mid-80s. But I would just watch anything. And I think my first cinema visit I remember going to was it was Popeye. So it was like 1980, 81. And so I would have
some
been
Robert
like
Altman right off the bat.
Yeah, Robert Altman. And the Muppet movie, and that was 79. So I was like maybe 6. But we didn't go to the cinema a lot because we didn't have a lot of money. But we didn't go on holiday. We didn't ever go away. But we'd always go in the summer. We'd go to the cinema a couple of times. That would be our... So it just became this like thing. It was always part of me, like always. So I just can't remember a time. And then, I had my eldest son when I was 17. So I was stuck in a lot. So again, I just watched an inordinate amount of films. I would just watch whatever was on. And that's where it came from. They've always been there. So I don't have I hear some people and they're like, oh yeah, we had this rap theatre, or my dad was a projectionist. And I was like, mine's kind of more mundane. We didn't have much money. So, we just stayed in and watched. And then by my teens, everyone was bootlegging, so there was all that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As well. And, it was just, I couldn't imagine life without films. They just, they are pure escapism for me.
Escapism, and also it's an enrichment thing. I think, I wouldn't say that you should learn everything about life through movies. You should definitely go try to live some of that. But it's like, you can kind of get a wider perspective of life through film, especially trying to like discover things from, other countries and like, and that's what's rewarding for me is just the constant kind of discovery, which is why we did the show we did before called Cinema Discovery Project. We always wanted to try to help people expand their outlook on things, whether it be from other countries or low cinema or high cinema or, and I know that you're a big fan of the horror genre. So you kind of, I'm sure you go to bottom to top with that genre. So where did that love for horror like start?
Again, when I was really young, I was about 6. I've told this story so many times, so apologies to anyone.
Oh, I mean,
okay.
Our listeners might
It's
not
all
have heard
new.
it, so that's okay.
But my uncle was babysitting for us, and again, I must have been about 6 or 7, and the BBC here in the 70s and 80s showed a lot of Hammer. Like they constantly showed Hammer horror. So most people my age from Britain, that's where they first came across horror, because it was slightly before everyone started getting videos. And he had the TV up. We were supposed to be asleep on the sofa, but he had Dracula Prince of Darkness on, and I was slyly watching it. And the only bit I remember was Barbara Shelley at the window, but it terrified me so much I became obsessed with it. Like I was obsessed with the fact that Dracula was going to break into the house. So I used to stuff all the vents up in my window. Because for some reason I imagine that he turns into mist. He doesn't. When I saw the film later, I was like, hang on a minute. He's just turned into mist. But he could get in, and that was what started it. It was that and the fact that I got my hands on a Tales of the Crypt. It was like an anthology book, and I was attached to that. Like I took it everywhere. And it came from there. But it wasn't just horror. Like my mum was the horror person, and my dad was the comedy person. So I'd watch a lot of comedy with my dad, and I'd watch a lot of horror with my mum. Because my mum always wanted someone to watch horror with her. And my dad's a musician, so he'd be out most nights playing gigs. And my mum would be like, oh yeah, come and watch this, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original. I remember that gave me my first existential crisis when I was 7. I was like convinced all the neighbours were doppelgangers for about 6 months. And I don't know, it just, I don't know why horror, but it just became an obsession from that point on. I just became really obsessed with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed through some of your features, some of your video essays and things like that, there's also like horror literature, plays, you definitely dig into that to also, because obviously a lot of...
I read a lot. That was my other escape, was reading and going to the library. And of course that was free. So I could get, and my mum was quite good about if I wanted to read something that wasn't necessarily in the children's side. Although I did steal her copy of Amityville Horror, the original book, which had "This is a True Story." I stole that and traumatized myself with that. And she also had the Magic book with the cover from the film, the puppet. And years before I saw the film, I think I saw the film when I was a teenager. But me and my brother used to challenge each other. He could like look at it for the longest, and we'd try and psych each other out. Yeah. And whoever looked away first was like the chicken. So it was just such a big part of it, like literature, and there was never any like separation of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to kind of those early formative years, was movie collecting ever part of your life, or was it mostly television?
No, because people didn't collect films then, and because like I remember like a video would cost you like £80.
Yeah.
We collected them by recording them, off like if they were shown on TV. But we had so much censorship in the UK. Like all the swearing to get up. There's a hilarious, I've been trying to find it for years, but the Midnight Run BBC dub, where they dubbed all the swearing out and put these stupid words in.
Oh, goodness.
I've been looking for that for years because I used to have it recorded, and it's just so, it was like, you mother flubber.
Yeah.
We got those here when they put them on cable. And they change all those. Sometimes as extra features on some DVDs or Blu-rays, you'll get the cable version, or some scenes from the cable version. It's almost as if just leaving it in would have been better because changing it makes it so much worse.
Sometimes it makes no sense to me what words they change, because sometimes
the sentences don't work.
They'll say "God damn," and then like next thing you know, somebody will say "shit," but then they change it to "spit." And I'm like, really? That's the word you chose to change? Like, you'd think with a country that is like got a lot of like Christian values in it and stuff, like that's the one they would change. But no, they kept "goddamn," and then they took out "shit," which is just something that you do every day.
And I was going to mention that Great Britain, British cinema is notorious for their censorship of graphic content, specifically 70s and 80s stuff with video nasties and whatnot.
Yeah.
So since you're such a big horror person, I was wondering, did you end up going back to all those films that you may have missed because of all the censorship later on?
I think home video's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. As for the nasties, like, I guess we came close to collecting through the bootleg scene, which by the late 80s, I was in my teens then, and that's when I came to a lot of the more Italian stuff because it was all banned, and I had a friend who could get video nasties, so we were all on the dole. None of us worked. We would go around every Wednesday, pool our money for some beer, and watch whatever banned film that we until he was busted and all his tapes were taken away. But there was like tape trading and stuff that went on, but I never really did much tape trading because it always just seemed like so much of a faff, like sending off money to the back of the dark side or whatever. I would just rely on whatever my friends got. I remember it must have been like 91 or something. My friend Wayne bringing Caligula around, thinking it was a porno. But with the watching it, like, why is Malcolm McDowell in this porno? It was just
Now, when it comes to like what you do now, which is you of course you add in a lot of written stuff and video essays and things that help add context to films. Where did that journey of like getting into that realm of film criticism and for the written and the special features for a lot of these Blu-rays?
It was total accident. Like the whole thing was a complete accident. For years, like, because I had my son when I was only 17, and then I had 4 other kids. So I lived this parallel life where I was doing like crappy jobs, bringing up my kids, and just doing that. Still obsessed with film, but could never find anyone locally to talk about it, let alone like Asian films. So it was like more of a private thing for me. I'd find like the odd person. But other than that, everyone just thought I was a bit weird. I remember getting visitor queue and like scaring people off. They'd come around visiting. I go, you got to watch this film, and then they'd leave. So about 11 years ago now it was, I got laid off from this job. I just got laid off from this job. I was a cleaning manager, like a regional cleaning manager, which sounds really important, but it wasn't. I just like manage the cleaners and do cleaning myself. And I got laid off, and I had like a really bad period of mental health, and I got some money when I was made redundant, so I bought a laptop. And I'd always wanted to write, like even when I was a kid, that was the other thing I loved, was writing. I'd write stories, I'd make my own fanzines, just for me, because I was a kid. And so I started a blog just on a whim. One day I signed up for WordPress and just started this blog that I didn't think anyone would read. I just thought, I'm stuck at home, I've lost my job, I'm really fed up. I'm going to finally start writing. What can I write about? And then I remember that, like, write what you know. So I thought, I'll write about movies. And that's how it started. It was just this weird thing. And I think within a year I was writing for Screen Magazine. Like, it just happened like totally accidentally. And then Fangoria and Diabolique. I started at Diabolique just reviewing Blu-rays. That's what I did when I started there it was 2013. And it just started there. And then someone from Arrow, this was about 6 years ago, had been reading my blog, and they needed someone to write about Russ Meyer. Well, not someone, they needed a woman to write about Russ Meyer. So that was where I got my first commission from. They got in touch with me and they were like, we really want a female-led essay on Russ Meyer for the Valley of the Dolls release that they did ages ago. And that's where it started. And I thought it would just be a one-off. I remember when they were like, you're going to get, send us your invoice. And I was like, what? I'm getting paid.
Invoice? Do I need a letterhead too?
I was just like, what? And it just weirdly started from there. And then I began a podcast. And the commentary thing, again, was because Daniel Bird, who produced all the Borowczyk stuff and the Zhivansky stuff, I had actually listened to our podcast. And I didn't know Daniel then, but I know him really well now and consider him a friend. But he was producing Story of Sin, the Borowczyk release, and needed a commentary. And so, again, that was like, what are you asking me? What? It was a baptism of fire because nobody tells you how to do a commentary. And then since then, it's just carried on. It's like this weird thing. I was... At that time, I was working 2 jobs. I had a part-time job as an admin assistant. I was going out at night and cleaning as well. And really hadn't thought about freelance writing or anything. I just was doing it, even editing the magazine on top of my other stuff. And then it just got to the point where I was turning down writing work to go to my job work. And I thought, what am I doing?
Yeah,
just pack it in. So I did. And it was just this weird thing. And even now, I'm just like, I don't know how that happened, but it just did.
But isn't it? It's got to be rewarding because it's whenever something that you really love, like film, and you suddenly, like you said, accidentally just kind of fell into it like that, and you're able to make some kind of living off of that thing you love. It's got to be rewarding.
It is rewarding. It's rewarding and challenging at the same time. It's because obviously any freelance, you don't know when work's coming in, and I usually end up with either too much or then I'm panicking. So that took me a while to get used to. And then all the stuff as well, because I'm quite feminist in my work and I'm quite outspoken. So obviously when I first came into it, there weren't that many women doing it. And I met a kind of backlash in certain parts of fandom, which they still whine on now, but it just seems irrelevant. But when it first started happening, that was kind of weird. I wasn't used to getting that online, just abuse and stuff for no reason whatsoever. So there's highs and lows to it.
Yeah.
But it was like I just thought, no, I need to do this because there aren't many women doing it, and there aren't many working class people doing it.
Right. You're able to bring a certain specific perspective that, others probably don't get to see very often. Like you just said, a working class perspective, kind of in every person's perspective. Like you were saying, you came to film in a rather organic way. You didn't go to, film school to study all these great works and all this stuff and, write treaty, all kinds of papers and whatnot and all this kind of stuff. You're coming from it from a very organic perspective. And that's unique because you don't see a lot of that. You're right. And is there a specific project that you worked on that you were really, really excited about? Like, I love this film so much. I need to work on it. Everything.
Because I have ADHD, so I've got 2 gears, completely uninterested and unable to do anything. That's usually me in admin. Or 100% absolutely hyper focused. This is the most important thing in the world, and so I generally can't take any project where I'm not excited that I feel like there's something I can bring to it. Every single one, and some people are like, "Oh, that was a weird choice," and I'm just like, "No, not at all."
No.
Is there now, do you feel like when they come to you with these films they want you to do work on, do you feel like most of the time they have you in mind in the right way, where you feel like you can be excited about it, or do you think a lot of times you get sent stuff where you're like, I don't know? Is it like
I don't
good-
know. I do get stuff I turn down, but I usually pass it on to someone else. Like if I'm not into something, I can't do it, because it is, even if you love the film, doing a commentary is 40 to 60 hours work. I mean, you guys do podcasts, you know the work that is, like, just the technical side of it.
Yeah.
And that audio has to be fucking pristine. You know, I'm someone saying to me about us going into studios. I'm not going to studios. I'm sat at my desk doing it. We don't get paid for that. But it has to be pristine and as close to studio quality as you can get it. So that takes a lot of time as well, just making sure that audio is clean. I have helped with my partner on that as well, which is good. But then just the prep, even if it's a film that you know, wow, you need to like sit there and watch it over and over again. Then you do an outline. I mean, people got different approach, but I usually just do an outline. I bullet point everything. And then even if it's something I know really well, I'll still do a bunch of research to see, you know, because if you actually typed out a commentary, and I don't really script, but I've done it, you're looking at the same amount of text as you get in a monograph book that would take you months to write.
Yeah.
And you generally don't get months to prepare. So you have to absorb all this information, plan it. It's at least 40 hours work. So even if it's a film that you love, by the end of it, you know, you don't really want to see it for a while. You know what I mean?
I was just going to ask, by the end of all that process, are you just so exhausted and spent about going over and over a film that you're just like, I don't want to watch this for years now?
Yeah, the contributor copy turns up. I don't open them. So I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to watch that again. Yeah, it's a weird format. You know, if you write an essay on something, it takes you a couple of days and you're done. And then you can move on with your life. But a commentary is like a whole other thing. And depending on the length of the film, you're talking, and if it's solo, so if you do solo and it's 2.5 hour film, which I've done, you're talking for 2.5 hours. And I see people go, oh, that's easy, but it's like, try it. Just fucking try
I've done
it then.
I've done like these like kind of like watch along like commentaries with friends on things that I've seen multiple times, like you said. And then after we were done doing them, I felt like I was, you know, we had fun and we did good. And then I'd get comments like, "You guys suck." Like you guys,
No.
you guys didn't give us anything. I'm like, well, I didn't make the movie. I'm just talking about it as a fan. So, you know. But like you said, it's good when you're doing commentaries, not only to go off of what you love about the movie and what you can see into the movie, but to do research so you can add extra context to maybe certain, you know, certain actors or that were involved or certain production people or whatever. It's good to have that like extra know-how on hand to be able to like really give the audience a full circle commentary, you know.
There'll always be someone who complains, though,
of course,
especially like older men. You know, I think I did one for Sweet Charity, and there's a certain forum. There's a whole thread on that because I didn't mention Stubby K. And I generally don't do a lot of actors' bios unless it's an interesting story. Unless there's like a story, I don't generally like to just sit there and do credits because I don't think they mean anything. And I also assume if someone loves the film enough to watch it, buy it, and then listen to a commentary, they're going to know who's in it.
Yeah.
Like I just sort of work on that assumption. And then you'll get people saying, oh, well, you didn't mention so-and-so and you didn't mention so-and-so. And it's like entirely depends on the project. If I'm doing like some obscure Spanish film, there's absolutely no point me mentioning the cast to you if all they've been in is Spanish sex comedies.
Yeah.
Like no one's ever going to see.
Well, like for instance, I remember I did. I'm trying to remember her name, but it was on the film for Pirates on Blood River, and it was you talked about in there about a female actress that was highlighted in that movie.
Oh God, now I can't
remember.
Right?
But you did a whole video essay about this particular actress that had like a small career throughout the 60s into the 70s, and like so that's an example where you decided to contribute to something. Now this wasn't part of the commentary, but you did a video essay on an actress. Like that was just.
Oh, is that like Hammer's women thing?
Yes,
for
yes.
Indicator.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd get women. They'd let women in to talk about the women. I did.
Yeah, so
I did a few of those, actually. They were quite interesting, but with that, you were given like a very specific remit of you can only talk about this. I used to try and get things in about the roles, at the end, like because I couldn't just do the bio thing. But they were supposed to be like bios. I can't remember. It might have been Tallulah Bankhead. So the rest of them were like about 8 minutes or something. And I did one that was like 28
I was going to say this
minutes.
one.
And they were like,
This one was like 20 minutes. This was like about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have the Assassination Bureau here because I just recently picked it up, and of course, without even knowing, you did
Diana Rigg.
You did a tribute to Diana Rigg. I thought I'd just bring that up since we're talking about
Diana Rigg.
Yeah, and this was because I believe she just recently passed. So, had you done that after she had passed as kind of a tribute, or did it happen kind of just happenstance?
No, it was just because I did one for imprint on Stella Stevens.
Okay.
And they just liked it so much. Because I always feel like actresses don't get talked about enough.
Very true.
They usually get talked about in, what they look like, or even if you like read archive interviews with actresses, it's really frustrating because quite often I was reading one with, I think it might have been Karen Black recently. And it was like, who was so-and-so like to work with? And what was this actor like to work with? And then like an explanation of what she was wearing. And I just think that actresses don't really get discussed enough. So I do like to, I did another one like on Ingrid Pitt for imprint, which I really love doing. Because Ingrid Pitt just gets talked about as, she's in Hammer, she got her tits out. But, she was in a concentration camp. She escaped Nazi Germany. She was a single parent in the US. And she went to Spain and started a film career. And she's just remarkable. And that material was in her autobiography. It's not, like, hidden.
Right.
But she's never talked about like that. So I do like that with Diana Rigg. And she's such a big kind of, Dame Diana Rigg in the UK. But the thing that struck me about doing that was how little she did in film. So that was like the focus of my essay, the few films that she did in the 70s.
Yeah.
And she never did like really commercial film as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like outside of, she was such a hit in the Avengers. Like that's what I grew up with. So it is good like when companies are open to that because, I guess historically it's commentary and stuff. It's an evolving thing, but it started off either like director-led or very academic-led.
Yeah.
And then it went into another chapter of mainly just blokes talking, just blokes talking. So it is starting to evolve, I think, where, companies are starting to think, hang on, maybe we don't want to just do the same old. Maybe we get some different people in and we try and do something different with this. And I think Arrow were one of the first labels to really lead the way in that. I mean, they were very proactive in making sure, if they were going to do Russ Meyer, they didn't just want it to be blokes talking about the women. They wanted an actual... And I think the second one I did for them was the female prisoner Scorpion, which again was very balanced. There was me and Kayla Janice. And then I think Jasper Sharp and I can't remember who else. But again, they were like very, very proactive in making sure that, this is pinky violence. We should get women in on this. So
right.
I think they kind of led the way on that in a way.
And kind of going hand in hand with that, I don't know if I've kind of noticed this just as an outside perspective. I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but there has been a really big push in the last several years to really highlight women in film, specifically women filmmakers whose work has kind of, been relegated or has kind of not been pushed into the spotlight very often. And I don't know if you've noticed that kind of push as well when it comes to even specifically home media, just to get these films out there. I know there's been a big push for Dorothy Arzner's work. We've gotten her work coming out. There's been a lot of push for a lot of the women in the silent era who did mega work. And that's all come to light.
There was the Pioneers of Cinema set that Kino did, and then BFI did one, which I did a little essay for the BFI one. There is now, I think, more of a market for that. I think people assume, like, I guess the collector community is all male, and so it's been kind of gate-kept for quite a while. But companies are realizing now, actually, no, that isn't. It's not just a specific fan that needs to be catered to. That those fans are there. These kind of real, especially in genre, real kind of hardcore straight men. You know, I'm trying to think of a nice word for them.
I agree with you entirely.
But actually, a lot of horror fans are far more, you know, open-minded and progressive, and are actually kind of tired of that as well.
Of course,
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's certainly been the case with my work. Just, you know, the amount of support I've had from men who were just like, God, I've just been so sick of hearing this, and now there are different people doing it. So it's great to see that.
Yeah, it's been very eye-opening and educational, just from a cinephile perspective, because there's been a lot of unearthed cinema that, you know, you've not gotten to see, you know, because either it's been brushed aside, or it's been kind of not, it's been relegated, or all of those things in all of the genres throughout, you know, cinema, going from the silent era all the way up till now. But I just feel like, you know, there's, like you said, there's that collection that came out from Kino. There was one they did for African American cinema as well.
I was also
going
to
to
say, I feel like Ida Lupino's been really uncovered a lot lately too.
Yeah, the Ida Lupino. In fact, I did a commentary on that.
I have that.
That was Kino. Again, you've got Brett Wood at Kino, producer. He also does a lot of curation, and he has been very kind of pivotal in, I think he did the African American set, he definitely did the female pioneers. He's currently doing those, I don't know what they're called, you know, the box sets of the old 50s sort of education films.
Are you talking about the
drugs
Something Weird? I think it's like Something Weird is the series or something like that.
Yeah, he's been doing that as well. And Brett is just, you know, so interested in all different types of cinema that he's I think he's been sort of spearheading a lot of that, which is good. I just think because the technology's opened up now.
Yeah.
The market is opened up, and everyone's like, what can we restore next?
Yeah.
Like, what is the most obscure thing that we can dig up and restore?
Well, that's definitely like a Vinegar Syndrome thing. Vinegar Syndrome just, they'll find everything and just restore everything over there. You know, now, especially with partner labels, you know, their partner labels ever growing, they're doing so many different things over there. But yeah, I think that, you know, like a Vinegar Syndrome or a Severin has an effect on these other labels like Kinos and Arrows, where they're starting to open up their kind of like scope of what they're willing to put under their umbrellas, you know, overall. And like you said, like the Kino series with the Something Weird, with all the exploitation kind of like educational movies are all
like
in there.
Reefer Madness and stuff.
Yeah, Reefer Madness. And,
they're doing. There's some great work going on, and then you just think, oh my God! Just when you thought. I have this ongoing thing, like I'll do something on my podcast or Patreon, and then it appears on disc. Like I'm just like the cinema gods are speaking. It's like, when are we going to see such and such? When are we gonna see such and such? And I just think, yeah, there was a time when the Giallo was so obscure, and most of the Giallo films I saw on like old DVD or like bootleg, or you know. And now the Giallo's quite well known thanks to home video, and a lot of the kind of major titles, and even some of the more obscure stuff is now out on these like wonderful discs. And you're just like, what time to be alive?
Oh yeah,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely picked the best time to start this podcast because there's been such a boom in the boutique label industry over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know how you keep up with it, because I can't even keep up with stuff I've been on.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, because normally you'll do something and then it might be like 6 months or even longer before it gets announced, and then the announcement goes up.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh God, yeah, that's been announced. So it's like hard enough just keeping track of like one thing at a time, let alone like what every label is doing, because that's just insane.
Well, we don't talk about everybody. Unfortunately, we can't talk about everybody. We kind of let what we kind of collect be part of what kind of curates what we talk about. Like I try to be as open as possible. I have a lot of different labels in my collection, but some things we just can't talk about. There's some smaller labels that maybe only announce things every few months, or like, and we miss them, or there's just some things that we just don't watch. And, you know, Andrew does a lot of watching, but there's some things he can't even watch. And so we like to be able to have a little bit of like, you know, something to know about the movies before we talk about them. So you know, sometimes we can't keep up with everybody, and so we have to let some announcements kind of fall off to the side. But I mean,
it has changed so much. So when I started at Diabolique, and I used to review discs, so that was like nearly 10 years ago, and you know, it would be like, I don't know, there would be maybe 6 discs a month to go around the writing pool. But it got to the point where I couldn't keep up with screeners. They just send these things. I'd just be like, I can't. Like, I'd have to spend my whole life reviewing these.
Oh yeah, if you wanted to, it could be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Like DVD
movies.
Beaver, they've got like 2 guys there. It's like, how do you do this? You actually review everything. It's like, how do you ever get any time? It's insane.
Well, it's not even just watching them. It's also like feeling like you actually like took it in and have something to say about it. Like how can you keep the mental focus enough to like take it in, absorb it, and then really have something to say about it within a certain small period of time, and then go off to the next thing. That's what's tough about it.
And watch all the like 12 hours of extras that they put on now as well. Man. It used to be like one thing.
Yeah. But God, I mean, like you
one
said,
little
like
documentary or something.
Like you said, it's an amazing time. Like the fact that so much work is being put into these things is a treat for all of us fans of it. So, but one thing I want to definitely touch on before we finish up is our your Patreon, because I know it started. I started out as an article on your magazine, but Confessions of a Cineslut. So please tell us about that.
So the like manifesto for that was not to be too negative, and I could really say not very nice things about the industry that I work in, but I don't really want to do that here. But it is a very gate-kept industry. And I've experienced that from colleagues, like, no, I didn't go to film school. And, you know, I have got a degree. It's just in social work. I didn't go to film school. I don't hang around at film festivals. You know, I've never had the money for that. But I do think that it was like Andrew was saying earlier, like when you watch world cinema, I've always been curious about things. So, you know, in the 90s, I was really into watching Japanese film, which then led me to books, which then led me to manga, which then, you know, so it was always this thing. And, you know, I have sort of experienced this sort of classism from the people on high who are like, in fact, there was one critic who actually wrote a whole essay about how uneducated people like me are and we're ruining the industry.
I've seen, those articles are so out of touch.
Yeah, and so there was that. And then on the bottom, there was this kind of hardcore of more genre fans who don't like any, like, unless you're strictly speaking in this very basic way of, I like this, they get really angry. They're like, oh, you're trying to go over our heads. And so Cineslut started really as a way of talking about how I don't think there's any divides in... I mean, I use high-low, but I don't agree with them. I don't agree with putting high-low on anything. Like, my tastes are very eclectic, and I don't think you should be shamed for liking anything. Like, I like really mainstream Hollywood stuff, maybe not so much modern stuff, but... You know, I grew up in the era of Steven fucking Spielberg. You know what I mean? Some of my first cinema experiences were Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Indiana Bloody Jones, E.T. And I love that just as much as I love obscure, weird Czech New Wave film. And so Cineslut really started as a project to say, it, you know, we can just love any film. It doesn't have to have these like rigid boundaries around it. That, you know, there is no high-low, and, you know, so hence the slut, you know, it was weird when I started doing other stuff in home video that wasn't just horror, because I don't just watch horror and never have. It just happens to be, I guess there's more of a culture around horror. So if you're starting writing about film and you know about horror, it's easier to break into that because there's, you know, loads of magazines devoted to horror. There's websites. There's nothing on like comedy or like Screwball Comedy Magazine. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not that culture. But it was funny because there was this whole set of people that were like, she's just a horror person. She shouldn't be coming in here. And then there were the horror people going, how dare she get above her station and leave the horror? So Cine, he started like a bit tongue-in-cheek to sort of say fuck you to both sides. But it's become like this lovely little community, I think. Because I found so many other people just there. They're like the people in the middle, you know? You don't distinguish. They would happily watch Spider-Man and then Hodorowski. You know, they don't make those same things. If you enjoy a film, just enjoy a film. It doesn't have to be this. Because I do find film culture in general is so, well, like all cultures, I guess, just so gate-capped. There's the cinephiles on one side who only watch a very small group of filmmakers and think they're better than everyone else. And then there's the kind of horror bros. Then there's the Marvel bro. And everyone's like disconnected. And I think that was the biggest shock I had getting into film. Right, I just wanted to meet other people that liked the films I liked. And I did. I made a lot of friends that I'm still friends with now just from writing my old blog. And I just thought there has to be other weirdos out there like Jess Franco, like where are they? And I achieved that, but it was a shock to me that it was so divided as well. That considering we are all the same at the end of the day, we're all nerds. We all covet films in one way or another. The amount of infighting and gatekeeping and, you know, crap that goes with it, that was a shock to me. I think it's more out in the open now, though, for some weird reason. I don't know why, but when I first started doing this, it was more covert. It was more of a covert thing. In the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years, it's become more, I guess we become more polarized as a culture, so people are more willing to be outspoken. But it has become like this whole film Twitter, for fuck's sake. It's like everyone needs to calm down.
Yeah, I think, you know, with, you know, the freedom that the internet, you know, brings us, it also, you know, like anything, people abuse things when they can have it. And so I think people have abused the freedom of being able to get online and talk about whatever you want and say whatever you want to somebody that's not right there in front of your face. Because if you were in front of their face, you probably wouldn't say the same thing. And that's kind of the negative aspects of that freedom. So it's the thing is I guess as people that don't like that stuff, that negativity in that way, we just got to decide to ignore it, because I'm not going to let that affect me. You know, like, I mean, it's not.
And there's so much of it. I mean, I'm constantly on social media, on Twitter and stuff, and the sheer amount of just like horror stories that I hear about just people being abused and harassed and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, why? Like, who would take the time to be that, like, negative of a person? Like, how much time and freedom do you have to do that? Life is extremely short in the grand scheme of things. So it's like, don't waste your time with stuff like that, because it doesn't really matter in the end. And
yeah,
it
is.
really
I
doesn't.
think it's fear. I think it's like it comes from a fear thing that people just want to keep these. I think now film is opening up, more people are coming into it, and I think that is a great thing. If somebody suddenly wants to watch all the Giallo, I'm not going to judge them because they're just seeing them now. I'm just glad that they're watching them. And you know, it was like a friend recently asked me for some Czech recommendations, and I'm just like, yes, I'm so glad. And there is this kind of, I was there first. A lot of genres I tend to work in have those male gatekeepers. And several years ago, I did become like part of, there was an actual campaign against me in a Facebook group by these sort of middle-aged guys who were just, she's too fat to be on camera, she's too young to talk about Hammer, she's an idiot. Like it was constant. And somebody leaked the screen grabs of what they were saying to Twitter. And And they stopped after that. But I did have one guy kind of stalked me. He's probably listening in now because he listens to everything. He kind of stalked me for years. Apparently would just put up passive-aggressive stuff, like he'd spy on my Facebook and make veiled reference. It was just really weird. And it was all because I dared to do stuff on Hammer. And it was like, but I'm almost the same age as you guys. I grew up watching it on BBC Two, just like you did. Why do you get to own it? You know, you don't own Hammer. Yeah. It was an absolutely ridiculous thing that went on. So that was like my baptism of fire. And that really affected me. It made me really ill, actually. But after that, I started to think, fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that. Yeah. That's how I feel about a lot of things, you know, as I've gotten older. And I'm not that old. I'm only like 33, but you know,
you're a little baby.
Oh, I know. I mean, look, if I took off this beard, you would think I was like still in high school. But yeah,
I'm 34,
the older
35,
I get, the more
it's
you realize that, you know, pay attention to the things you love, hold on to that stuff, and then anybody else that wants to try to ruin that, just kind of tell them, just get out of my face. Like, get out of my life. I don't need you in it if you're going to make things worse.
You realize that a lot of the things you worried about when you were younger really don't matter. You know, all the pettiness and grudges and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. But when it comes to cinema, it's so odd to me that cinema is so vast and so large and endless to the point where you can dig in it forever and ever, that there's people who want to box it in so many different ways. And
that is the spirit of cine stuff. Why box it in? Like, I'm forever finding new stuff. I don't think that's ever going to end. There's just too much stuff. Yeah. I get stressed that I'm never going to see it all because there is just too much.
That's a great fear. I think all cinephiles have. Also, I don't know why people stop other people from talking about it. It's like, if you don't like what someone's saying about it, don't listen to them. It's really easy.
Yeah.
Like if someone doesn't like what you're saying about something, about Hammer or whatever, they don't have to read that article. They don't have to listen to that podcast or that audio commentary. They can just move on to what they like.
It's like I said, I think the internet's made people feel like that they're free to express themselves, to express their opinions about anything they want to because they can. And it's not. It's like sometimes you gotta self curate. You gotta be like, look, is this where? Like, do I need to say something to that person? Do I need to be negative to that person just because I can be? No. If they like something, let them like it. Like,
I mean, I understand. There's an argument saying, hey, people should have their minds opened up to other opinions, other perspectives, and all that kind of stuff. Of course, but if you're just gonna hate someone just for what they say, you don't really have to. You know, there's nothing holding you. That hate's not holding on to you for any reason. I mean, that's more philosophical than it is movie related, but I think that's just kind of life in general.
I think it's really pertinent to the kind of home video collecting community, though, because I mean, people talk about Karen, you know, the woman Karen, but what about all the male Karens in that guy who ate his package because he had to wait 3 weeks during the pandemic, apparently on YouTube, ate his packaging from Vinegar Syndrome, so he had to wait 3 weeks.
Goodness gracious.
And was screaming about it in a video, and just these pedantic people who, you know, I mean, I know the labels have quite a sense of humor about it, but it can get like really, you know, you've worked on something for months and the announcement finally comes and there's always that one guy goes, nothing for me this month. And it's like, thank you, Roger, whatever.
Okay.
Like, you know, I quite often go to business pages and tell them I'm not buying their product. And there's always somebody who's like, you know, when are you going to release some completely unrelated film? And then there's somebody else who goes, why isn't there, you know, this extra or that? And I do think the kind of consumer nature of it encourages that entitlement.
I see that all the time. I'm a big fan of Turner Classic Movies, and there's always a lot of people on like Facebook comments or Twitter asking, why do you keep showing this movie over and over again? Why don't you show this movie? And why don't you show that movie? And, oh, I can't believe you're showing this. And it's like, you don't know the ins and outs of the company and what they have access to or don't have access to.
That's the other thing. My favourite piece of criticism I ever got was a guy on a forum, and it was Sweet Charity again. And Sweet Charity's obviously based heavily on Fellini's Nights of Cabiria, which was kind of why I was invited to it in the first place, because Fellini's like my first love, but also Shirley MacLaine as well. And I'd done other stuff on Shirley MacLaine for them. And I just thought, how wonderful. And I met this weird subgroup of the internet, straight male musical fans. I didn't even know this was a thing. The one guy was so angry that Kino had not included Nights of Cabiria on the release. He was like, if I knew she was going to talk so much about Nights of Cabiria, I just think this is disgusting. They haven't included this in the disc. It's like, one, Criterion released it. Two, it's not that difficult to see. It's like, and why would a company just include a completely whole other film? Because I mentioned it on a commentary. You know, and it's like a 2.5 hour film. It's like, of course I'm going to spend time going over the differences. But that was my favourite piece of criticism. I was just like, what is this? This is not even this is not even anything. Like, why are you so angry? Just go and buy the disc from Criterion.
Yeah,
it's a great disc.
Collecting melds the minds sometimes. You know, it melts people.
Well, yeah. There's there's certain, I wouldn't say privileged collectors, but there are collectors who you know want certain things and whatnot, and it's just kind of like, you know, we're getting so much now, it's kind of hard to complain, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think the amount of work in that, and there isn't actually a lot of money in this either. People think otherwise, but a lot of these projects, especially by smaller labels, are absolute labours of love when you see the work that goes into them. Like Mondo Macabro, for example, you know, it's just Pete Toombs, basically, and a couple of other people. And the real love that they put into those releases, and yet it's like, oh, you know, why isn't this? Or why wasn't this included? Or why didn't you do that? And it's like, you know, they've spent all this time bringing this film that no one else would have probably released, and all this, and all you're going to do is complain about it. Yeah. Like, just don't buy it.
We've been very fortunate and lucky enough to interview a lot of people who, you know, work on these movies to put them out to us, people who run these companies, the boutique labels, and you see that there's a lot of passion, and that they are as true a cinephile and film fan as you'll ever find. Like, that's their main thing in life, or else they wouldn't be in this industry. And you see how much, you know, love and care and dedication and passion they put into each and every release, and that has an effect, I think, on people who collect them. I know it has an effect, at least on me personally, and Steven, I think, as well. When you see that kind of, you know, personal effort poured into something, you want to support that.
And I think that's why we like to bring on people from behind the scenes. You know, because I think if people hear more from the people that are involved, I think maybe it can open people's minds up to being a little bit less negative about some of this stuff, and maybe a little bit more like excited. And hopefully we can excite people and, you know, help bring other perspectives in for people to maybe be more open and to everything, you know, because we don't just talk about Criterion. We talk about Arrow. We talk about Severin. We try to talk about as many as we can. So
I mean, Severin are another one, and they've just grown and grown and grown. Severin are just brilliant. But again, you know, David Gregory, he's been in this for years, for decades, and he is an absolute, you know, he's putting Jess Franco out because he fucking loves Jess Franco. You know, he is just 100% real. So then you see sort of people writing crap on the internet, and you just think, or complaining that their order didn't come immediately. And it's like, this isn't Amazon Prime. You know, these are actual people in a warehouse, you know, packing these things by hand. Have some respect for them.
I mean, look at what they did. Look at what Severin did for all the Hornsby R set, where they like stamped all the boxes to make it extra special with the straw. Like, they did all that work just to make it extra special, and people still complain. You know, like I'm like,
I love that set because Kayla Janice produced that, and she, again, Kayla is just so been programming for years, writing for years, and this is more like just again another extension of the stuff that she's passionate about and the work that went into that folk horror set and the documentary. That was like 3-hour long document. I mean, that thing was in the works for years. So when I was interviewed for it, it was just going to be like a featurette on Blood on Satan's Claw. It's going to be like this small thing. And they just ride with it, make this massive documentary and this huge box set because they love what they do. And there isn't a huge amount of money in this. Like, not every company is Criterion. Like, Criterion have got huge resources, obviously. But not every company has that. And it's run basically on absolute passion. And so it does kind of it does put you on a downer when you see people complaining or being downright abusive to staff as well. Yeah. I know Mondo have got it. I know Severin have got it, in their sales, or something goes wrong with the website, just being downright abusive to people. And I just think that's not on. That really isn't on.
Because they look at it, the customer's looking at it as an inconvenience, and I say that in quotes. You're not understanding that the fact that you're forgetting that the fact that this stuff's even coming out is a miracle.
Yeah, I know. It's like they're not fucking Jeff Bezos.
yeah. I mean, if they could set up a site like Amazon to make it that streamless and easy, they would, but they can't. It's not that easy.
Yeah, and a lot of these companies don't. I mean, some of them do sell on Amazon, but they don't like to because the product isn't packed properly. Yes. And
you get enough of that complaining about that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I mean, and they pack these things with like all proper packing and everything. You just think, God, how can you
trust me?
How can you not appreciate that?
That's the thing that we hate them. Like me and Andrew, we of course order our share of things through Amazon sometimes, but
I think we all do. It's a sin we all share.
But we have a problem with them, of course, shipping. Like for instance, all them Kino sets, film noir sets, they get packaged in a bag from Amazon instead of like a box and bubble wrapped, like it should be, because it is a collector's item, and that's what I want, and that's why a lot of times I just buy direct, or I buy through a more reputable site like a Diabolique DVD or like a Orbit DVD.
Yeah, Diabolique DVD are the best.
Yeah, they are. They're great over there.
Yeah. Amazing. I love those guys, and they got their own label now, Cauldron.
Yes,
you check those out.
I'm gonna be. They got a new one. I'm gonna get the Eloy de la Iglesias film on there that they got coming out. I think,
which I'm on, Murder in the Blue World.
Yes. Yeah, I've been trying to. I've got everything that's recently came out. The stuff from Severin. I've got all that stuff, and then I got that recent Pals release from Vinegar Syndrome, which is a great film. And so that's There's just so much out there to not be complaining about.
See, Severin doing Eloy's Quinqui films was just mind-blowing because I specialise in Spanish cinema, but those are like just so hardcore obscure that I don't think a lot of companies would have taken that chance on them, because it's like they're basically social problem films from 80s Spain. And they're not really genreified in that way, but the fact that they took the chance in not just releasing them, but providing all the context for people to understand them, I thought that was, amazing, like an amazing thing. And it opens the door for more Eloy, because there's a load of stuff in the early 70s, more genre stuff that really needs to be out, including The Priest, which is just an insane film.
Okay.
So again, it opens the door for more to come. So it takes companies to just, take a chance on something. Yeah. And I think some are more bold than others. Yeah. Like they'll be more bold. I still got to get someone to release Sergio Martino's sex comedies though.
Oh man,
I've been working on that one for so long. It's like, please release them.
Well, there's a good chance somebody's going to do it one day, hopefully. But before we leave out, anything else you would like to ask Andrew before we?
Oh no, I'm good. Okay. I think we've covered many things, and it's been a joy to just talk movies.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say before we leave, before we do our closing, I see I know you're a tattooed person. I'm a tattooed person too.
Yeah, so
is that something
that was another thing that Hammer people had against me.
Oh man, come on. So is that something you're passionate about? Your tattoos? Like I got a few. I don't have a lot, but
Yeah, I can't afford them now. I'm a writer, but yeah. I got quite a lot. Yeah, that was a weird thing because I went on and they were like, "Who is this? This person is too tattooed." Now, to me, when I got into horror, it was more of a subculture thing. It was like all the metalheads and the punks that were collecting video nasties. So it was this like weird, wonderful sort of counterpoint coming together of the energies or whatever it was in the 80s, where all the freaks were watching like Lucio Fulci films and listening to punk and everyone was tattooed.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, these guys in tweed sort of coats and shirts are like, "Who's this scruffy tattooed person?" So it's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, no, what? A tattooed horror fan? Bloody hell, I've never seen one of them.
Yeah, it's
and one of my
weird.
arms is all horror. I've got,
that's nice.
With Pitt, I've got Freddy, I've got like Frankenstein.
Oh,
on top of my
nice.
arm.
Well, that's awesome. I wish I had more money for tattoos. I'm with you.
Yeah, they're too expensive now. That's the problem. Like
Yeah.
I had all these done years ago, and the rates have just gone up now.
Well, as Andrew said, it's been amazing conversation. Thanks, Kat, for joining us. We went a little bit
You're
longer than I
welcome.
was. We were like right at an hour, so that's pretty good. I know you got some stuff
Yeah.
you got to get to, but thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Oh, no, you're welcome.
That was Kat Ellinger, man. She was amazing.
Yeah, fantastic interview, great person, just endless amounts of just great back and forth when it comes to talking about movies, and yeah.
Well, we got to get her back because she has a lot. She's got so much knowledge, and I can tell she wants to talk more. But she had some commentary she had to record. That's what she's like, I got to do a thing for Kino, and I was like, well, we got to get you off of here.
I know, just constantly working on brand new stuff for us to listen to and enjoy later on. And yeah, her work is vast, and you could spend hours and hours just going through all of her stuff.
Yeah, we didn't say
everywhere.
like numbers wise, but she has like at least over 160 credits, like
there's
of different
a lot
things,
of
whether it be
stuff.
essays or
And it varies. It's not all like, we focused a lot on horror, but there's not, it's not just horror films. It's all over the place. And yeah, you won't even realize that she's on one of your things that you've bought until you actually look, and then you just do it absentmindedly now. Like I realized that after when I was just like looking up a lot of her releases that I just bought them because I wanted them, and then she happens to be on them. It's the best of both worlds.
One of the ones I wanted to bring up, one of her video essays I wanted to bring up that I didn't get a chance to. I'm gonna have to talk to her about it next time. But was Children of Men from Arrow.
Oh yes,
she has a video essay on there that's really good. It's about kind of like the history of like sci-fi and how it relates back to like horror film. Like when I brought up to her about how she gets into a lot of like horror literature, she's a really big fan of like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and like getting into all of that and how that connects to so many things, and like she connects that all the way up to like themes that are in Children of Men, and I'm like, man, this is good. This is good stuff here. This is the kind of context you like to hear.
Oh yeah,
when you're when you're listening to something like this, where it helps broaden and it helps send you in a whole other direction of film, where you get this kind of connection here and where the birth of something is, and so yeah, she's just a fascinating and well-rounded contributor to these Blu-rays, and obviously you're getting them for the movies, but hey, sometimes it's good to just seek out some of their work, and her Patreon, she's got a lot of her written work on there and things like that, so go check out her Patreon. But now we're going to move on to what we do here every week, which is Blu-ray announcements. And where should we start, Andrew?
Well, we're going to be starting in a little bit of a different direction than we typically go to maybe a little bit more mainstreamy, but bear with us. I think it's an important release, not only for myself, but I just think in general.
Well, I know where you're going,
okay.
But should we do the little tidbit news from the Criterion, the Janus thing?
Okay.
Should we do that first, since that's not technically a release?
Yeah.
It's more of a news tidbit.
Good idea. But I guess our bit of news for the week is that Janus Films did tease us that Lost Highway, they will be exhibiting a new restoration in theaters sometime this year.
It's going to be playing at the film at the Lincoln Center 6/24 of this year. So
June.
Yeah, new 4K restoration. So
that leads us to believe that there will be a Criterion release at some point afterward, whether it's this calendar year or in 2023. If you can believe 2023 actually is a thing, it is on the horizon. The question is which one comes out first, Inland Empire or Lost Highway?
Yeah.
And either way, I want them both, so
I
put
do
them out.
too.
I'm assuming this will be a 4K UHD release. I mean, it's got to be. I would say the same with Inland Empire. If you've got these movies, David Lynch is such a big name in this realm that you just might as well go all out because the people will buy it. Most definitely.
And we know that when we talked about it off mic, Kino put out a DVD a couple years ago of Lost Highways, and it didn't. Unfortunately, there was a lot of problems. I don't think Lynch was happy with that release. So maybe
we covered it at the time on Cinema Discovery Project because a lot of people were talking about it. Unfortunately, that release, although I actually own it, so I can say that
I have it too.
It aesthetically looks really, really good. Like it's from a new transfer and stuff. But unfortunately, apparently there was a whole host of special features that were going to be on it. And for one reason or another, I don't know, David Lynch wouldn't sign off on them, or he wouldn't get back to them about it or anything like that, or he kind of ignored it, or whatever the case is. They just didn't end up happening. Yeah. So that release kind of just ended up being bare bones because of all of that. So hopefully this release will not be bare bones, because I think even the DVD is a bare bones release. And I know that David Lynch won't do commentaries. You're not going to see him talking about this movie. You won't see any interviews on it. But hopefully they can get some other people to create some cool special features for these movies.
Yeah. There's obviously a special relationship with David Lynch and the Criterion Collection, so maybe David Lynch was playing favorites and really just wanted Criterion to put out the definitive version of this movie.
I wouldn't even begin to guess what goes through that man's mind.
I know, right? So it's
begin to tell you.
It's a very complex person, but moving on from that great, I think that's great news. Hopefully it's a 4K and we get the definitive version of Lost Highway. So
nice.
Moving on from that to the original thing you were going to start us off with.
Indeed. Before I was so cut off.
I was rudely. You were rudely interrupted. I know. I did it.
We want to highlight that there is going to be a Paramount Presents release, which is Paramount's kind of prestige line, I guess, of their sub-label, if you will. They've been putting out movies now for at least 3 years, maybe 2.5 years or so. Either way, they've got a bunch of releases, and they've put out these quote-unquote definitive releases. We've talked about them a few times. I've always joked about Paramount finally waking up and putting out all this good stuff that they have. But they're doing a re-release of John Ford's film, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, but it is going to be a 4K UHD blue and regular Blu-ray combo, which they've not done with this line before, at least not that I know of.
Not that I can remember. I think this is their first 4K.
Yes.
We could be wrong. But,
we could be wrong, but I know that all of these movies have been getting brand new 4K restorations, remasters, and all this kind of stuff. So it would lead me to believe that at some point they will just be, hey, let's put this on a 4K disc and stop screwing around with a regular old 1080p disc. But when it comes to this release, there's going to be a new special feature with Leonard Maltin. He's kind of popped in with a new special feature on most of these Paramount Presents releases, if that makes sense, if that's correct. And I don't know if this is going to carry over all of the special features from not the Blu-ray release, because I think the Blu-ray release didn't have any, which was kind of a pain in the ass, because they put out a Centennial 2-disc DVD edition back in 2009, which of course had a bunch of special features. So I don't know if they are porting those over, but they are porting over quite a few special features. I would love if they would do that just for collector's sake, but you never really know. I know a lot of people, when they bought the original Blu-ray release, they tracked down the DVD release just to have the features because there weren't any. But is this a film that you've seen, Stephen?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's John Ford's a director that he played a lot in the Western genre, of course,
Right.
and this is, I would say, this is one of his best. It's not as it's a little bit on the dramatic side. It's got a little bit more of like a romantic angle to it. It's not as action packed as maybe something like The Searchers or one of his other earlier films, but
Yeah.
it's definitely got a interesting story of a man who, James Stewart, kind of is playing somebody that, is kind of a pacifist, you could say, in a way.
He's like a pacifist school teacher who ends up in this kind of small town, and he ends and John Wayne is there, and John Wayne is playing, of course, John Wayne, and John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart could literally not be more opposites of people, both in character and just the way they're acting, is. John Wayne is, of course, super macho, as he always is on screen, and Jimmy Stewart is the opposite in this film, and the film is such on a smaller scale than like his cavalry westerns, Rio Grande or Fort Apache or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the themes in this film. The biggest one being, when when it comes to publication, do you print the facts or do you print the legend of it? You know what I mean? And when it comes down to newspapers and stuff like that, you always print the legend. That's what sells,
Yeah.
And a great cast in here. You have, of course, Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne, but Vera Miles, Lee Marvin, John Carradine, Lee Van Cleef. It's a great film. It's really, like I said, it's my all-time favorite John Ford film. And this is coming out May 17th, so right around the corner.
Yeah, and it's... Yeah, and great ending. I love the ending. There's also like these kind of themes of like... he is like I was saying, he's a pacifist, but then there's a sense of needing to take your life in your own hands. Like you got to sometimes there's you have to have a call to action, and stand up for yourself, instead of just trying to, there's some people that just, you can't fight them with words.
Well, yeah,
unfortunately.
Lee Marvin is playing Liberty Valance in the film. This was at a point where Lee Marvin was just playing heavies, just like bad guys in movies, before he became like more of a leading man later on, and then he's a great actor. One of my all-time favorites is Lee Marvin. Just doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. It's, like you said, great thematic work, extremely well directed. Came out in 1962, so a little ways after.
A little later, yeah.
A little later in John Ford's career. I think this is post The Searchers. Searchers, I think, came out in 1956. So this is later on, and also... This is right around the time where the American Western would start to fade out a bit and the spaghetti Westerns would kind of take over in terms of changing the genre, becoming more, action-based and more stylized and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep, it's good film, and maybe we'll try to start highlighting some more Paramount Presents. For us, it's just one of them things where we got so much to cover that we don't cover everything. But if there's a particular film from another label that we're interested in, we're gonna definitely bring it up.
Yeah, and I do like these Paramount Presents releases. I gotta get more of them because I woefully don't have a lot of them in my collection. I was kind of picking and choosing, but
we kind of both
expensive.
We both have highlighted before saying that we both got the Roman Holiday.
Yes, that was the big one that we got, and I think this is number 31 in their line because each of them are numbered. I thought they had more than 31 releases.
I felt like it was definitely maybe closer to 100 by now.
Maybe they don't release these as much as I thought they did. But moving along now, Stephen.
Yeah, we're moving on to the Shout Factory releases.
Shout it out.
And I will. God, give me a chance. So we got a whole slew of things and a lot of 4K kind of upgrades and releases here. So I kind of, as usual, Shout Factory doesn't really release a lot of details on their features, so we don't have a lot of extra info, but I'm just going to run down the list of things that were announced. We have Life Force. We have The Craft, which is, of course, the film from the 90s, the witch film, the Coven film. You got, of course, Candyman, who's been released like 1,000 times.
Yeah, we just talked about it last week.
you just talked about Arrow re-releasing that on 4K, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Also, another film that's been re-released 1,000 times, Escape from New York, the John Carpenter film. Then we also have some. These are the little bit more interesting ones. Two for the Money, which has got Matthew McConaughey and was Al Pacino. And then we have Femme Fatale, which is a Brian De Palma film. And then we have Ghost in the Darkness, which is the one that stands out to me as being the one I'm actually excited about, because it's not like a great movie, but it's like a movie I grew up watching that, and I like Val Kilmer, and I know it's got like a kind of like a tumultuous production on it, and it's one of them films that the story of the making of it is just as interesting as the movie is. So it's like I know there's probably not going to be a ton of features on that, because you know how studios we talked about that with Kat Ellinger. Some studios are holding back things just because they don't want you to talk bad about a movie or about an actor or about so there was like a lot of issues with this movie being made.
I'm very curious what we're going to get for special features on it because of the tumultuous production. Also, I don't know if it'd be great if they could get Val Kilmer to talk about it, because I know in that documentary Val, they didn't get into too much of his. It was more about his personal life and stuff like that, but they didn't get into too much detail about his career. Dragging up all stuff on his career and whatnot. It was all from his perspective. But yeah. What are the other titles we have?
Oh, that's all I got.
Oh,
that's it.
Okay.
Unless there's more that I missed.
I guess talking about the Ghost and the Darkness was apropos at the point, because I just watched this movie for the first time. I had never seen it before, and it's a fascinating movie that does feel like it was definitely made in the 90s. I don't know, it just felt like that to me, and it's based on a true story.
Yeah, it's based on true events, and it's about Val Kilmer plays like a bridge maker. He goes all around the world building bridges, and he gets asked to go to Africa to build this bridge. And while they're there, they start to get attacked by these like man-eaters, the man-eating lions.
Yeah, lions.
That are attacking camps and eating people, and they the name of the movie Ghost in the Darkness is kind of what they call these lions. And then Val Kilmer tries to take care of the problem himself, but it kind of gets out of hand. And then Michael Douglas gets brought in he's like a hunter, a famous world hunter. He's hunted a lot of different game all over the world, and he comes in to help, finish the job.
Yeah. And this movie is directed by Stephen Hopkins, who directed, I think he's, at least in my opinion, what I remember him for directing is Predator 2. I think he directed Predator 2, which I think is super underrated.
It's definitely underrated. Yeah.
I mean, it's basically Predator comes to the city and just wreaks havoc. It's just like, it's a really interesting concept. He also directed A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, for those interested. He also, did you ever see the Lost in Space movie from 1998?
I probably did.
I remember watching that when I was young, and then he's done more TV work now later on in his career, but he started off doing kind of just a bunch of different things, because obviously, Predator 2 and The Ghost and the Darkness and Lost in Space are completely different movies. They are not at all similar to one another. But what I found really interesting about this movie is that it was done during the time in Val Kilmer's career where he was really, really famous. Like the 90s Val Kilmer, I think for those of you who didn't live through it, and for those of you who don't remember it, he was one of the biggest stars in the world at the time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is the movie, I think this came out right after he did Batman, Batman Forever.
Yeah.
And which is, as we know now, is still an iconic character that still makes... people go to the movie theater.
And of course, he'd done Heat, not either before or right before or after this.
Yeah, he came out in 1994, I believe. Yeah. So it's fascinating to me. Just like this is a movie that's kind of snuck in there in his filmography, and I don't think a lot of people mention it. No. Also, I know he was just coming off of talk about tumultuous productions. The Island of Dr. Moreau. He was just coming off of that, which of course was
Yeah.
a wild experience, I think, for everyone involved.
Yeah.
There's a whole documentary about that movie that's better than the actual movie that eventually ended up coming out. It's truly fascinating. Of course, we all know now that Val Kilmer, of course, has had health issues over the last several years.
Yeah.
If you've seen that Val documentary, you know what I'm talking about. But looking back at his 90s work, you know, like Tombstone, and he's in True Romance. Yeah, he's in, like we said, Batman and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's fascinating just to go back. It's almost like a time capsule of a film.
Yeah. And of course, Michael Douglas was a big star still at that time.
Yes,
you know, with
Michael Douglas is
with
in the movie.
From the 80s going into the 90s. You know, he did The Game, I think, right around that time. And you know,
this
was
movie
very,
was also written by William Goldman, who was one of the best, you know, screenwriters of his time. He won 2 Oscars, one for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and the other for All the President's Men. He's written, you know, I think his book about screenwriting, I forget what the title is taught in like every film school all over the world. But yeah, he also wrote The Princess Bride as well. So he worked on this movie, and this movie was like, I don't know if it was critically loved, but it got nominated for a couple of Oscars.
Really?
Yeah, and the movie actually won an Oscar. Yeah, it won for best effects, sound effects editing. And yeah. Yeah, very interesting.
Well, yeah, okay, cool. But I like the movie. I enjoy it. It's probably something I'll pick up. And I think it said it comes out May 10th. So
yes.
But the next one we can talk about is Femme Fatale, because that is
Brian
a Brian De Palma.
2000's Brian De Palma. I mean, the title of the film kind of gives you all you need.
Kind of gives it away. It's probably going to be some type of mystery, film noirish type of thing.
Yeah, a neo-noir circa 2002, directed by Brian De Palma. I mean, you kind of know what you're going to get in terms of like that's kind of his realm. That whole
and
erotic,
you got Rebecca Romijn in there. You got Antonio Banderas is in there.
Could you find 2 more gorgeous people at the time to put on screen? I don't know. I don't know a lot of Rebecca Romijn's work outside of the X-Men films, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like kind of eye-opening for me. And then Antonio Banderas, of course, you know, the guy's been a star since the 90s, in my opinion, and an amazing actor too. But this movie it has all kinds of twists and turns, and all kinds of like erotic thriller type elements to it. Rebecca Romijn plays this woman who's trying to pull off this heist, and she screws over her partners in it, and she's trying to basically escape to a new life and with a new identity. And something happens where they discover her once again, and now she's kind of got to go on the run, essentially. And then Antonio Banderas kind of gets roped into it, and they're kind of on the move together, and they have like a back and forth, you know, sexual chemistry and whatnot. And yeah, it's you know, I can't really say more of that in it. It's okay. I don't think it's great. It's not peak Brian De Palma, I would say, but it's still, you know, him doing what he does best. Yeah.
All right. Well, 2 for the money.
Yeah, the 2 for the money is, if I remember, because I have this on DVD, it's I think it's a sports betting movie.
Yes. And I was going to say, it's, you know, we got a couple kind of recognizable filmmakers involved. DJ Caruso, who I think this is an early one for him. He also did movies like Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf and
oh goodness, yes he did.
He did that in Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf, and I think he's done some other stuff. But and then Dan Gilroy wrote this film, which Dan Gilroy, of course, is most recently been known for working on things like, you know, like some of the Star Wars stuff. And
well, he also he also wrote. He's more of a writer than a director, but of course, his first film was Nightcrawler.
Yeah, Nightcrawler's amazing.
Kind of came out of the gate swinging when it comes as a director, which I think he wrote too. And then his next film was Roman J. Israel, which was the starring Denzel Washington. And then he did Velvet Buzzsaw, which was, I think, wasn't that Netflix film where Jake Gyllenhaal is like this artist guy or this art critic or something.
Not my favorite.
very odd, quirky performance for him, which that's kind of what Jake Gyllenhaal does. But yeah, he's written like screenplays for The Bourne Legacy, and The Fall, and Kong Skull Island. I don't know. That last one, I enjoy it, but whatever. But Two for the Money is kind of an underrated, very underseen film, in my opinion, about he becomes kind of it's like Wolf of Wall Street, but with sports betting, and not as good, and came out in 2005 because Matthew McConaughey kind of he's like a former athlete, and he kind of gets roped into the high stakes sports betting business, and like I think he's mentored by Al Pacino and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a solid drama thriller from the 2000s.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think this film kind of gets swallowed up by all the other like McConaughey trash. I hate to say
Not
that. Like
I
that.
wouldn't say trash.
Okay,
It was
let me
his
say it's
2000s.
okay. Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
It's the time where he was doing all these quote unquote chick flick type of films, romantic comedies, and I think most of this film like this got swallowed up in all that.
Well, yeah, it's sandwiched in between Sahara and Failure to Launch. It's in that mid 2000s. Matthew McConaughey time.
It's right before the reconnaissance started coming in. Like he did a couple more. He did like Tropic Thunder, where he was that very small character, and then his last like movie where I think he like finally decided to make a change was that Ghost of Girlfriend's Past.
Yes, he's in that, and he was in the movie called Surfer Dude, which I don't think he wants us to remember.
Yeah,
and but, he was in like Fool's Gold, and then he
but I
does,
think
like, We Are Marshall, which is a solid like drama. It's like we talked about Matthew McConaughey all the time, where he was doing his rom-com stuff in the 2000s, which wasn't bad. I mean, I've seen Made in Manhattan a bajillion times.
Too many
they play it on cable constantly.
Yeah, sure. Some of that stuff is watchable, but I think after Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, he starts to like fully commit to trying to do more serious work, because from there he does like Lincoln Lawyer, Bernie, Killer Joe, The Paperboy, Mud, Magic Mike.
Ironically, I mentioned Wolf of Wall Street, and he's in like a couple of scenes, and he steals all the scenes he's in.
Yeah, and then he wins his Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, like that same year too.
Yeah, at the same time. But that's Two for the Money. I was actually really surprised. I don't think it was a movie that would ever get a Blu-ray re-release, let alone from a boutique label.
They're doing everything, man. Everything is getting a chance, which is nice. But yeah. So now the rest of these are 4K releases that we got a bunch of re-releases here. What do we got going on? So we got the Escape from New York. I mean, they've done that again.
We're getting Escape from New York seems to get a lot of love these days, of course, I think, because it's a great movie. Also, a lot of John Carpenter's work just keeps getting just a lot of love in general. Yeah. I mean, we got all these kind of really nice Scream Factory releases a few years ago, and now we're just kind of getting upgraded versions of them. I know we got Prince of Darkness, got a 4K re-release a few years ago. I know the movie with Roddy Piper got a re-release. Why can't I remember the title?
Oh, They Live.
They Live, I think, got a 4K re-release at some point. So I think these were inevitable.
Yeah,
I think these are inevitable.
The Craft is the new one. I think Craft is something that
one I'm actually interested in.
Yeah.
The reason being is not only because they just had a sequel, like a legacy sequel, come out about it, but because this has been released on Blu-ray, like a regular Blu-ray release initially. This has got a collector's edition Blu-ray, and now it's getting a 4K Ultra HD collector's edition. And I don't think I own it at all. So I'm like, now I guess is the time to buy it.
Yeah, some things you wait on and it ends up working out. But
and it's a movie I actually really like, with a great cast. Fairuza Balk, Robin Tunney, Neve Campbell, Rachel True. And this was, I think, came out after Scream. So this is kind of a post-Scream role for Neve Campbell. Also, Fairuza Balk just doesn't... I don't know what she's doing, but she was in, of course, Waterboy. And then she was in one of our mutual favorite films of all time, Almost Famous.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember her in both of those films that came out around the same time. Mm-hmm. So Life Force is definitely a cult movie. This is a movie directed by Tobe Hooper. I have this Blu-ray actually, and it's basically like vampiric aliens come to Earth, and that's the plot of the movie.
Cool.
It's you think it's cool. It's a wild film. I mean, it's from the mind of Tobe Hooper, so that makes sense. It's written by Dan O'Bannon, who I think wrote Alien, if memory. I know he was supposed to write Jodorowsky's Dune at one point, but of course that movie never happened. Yeah, he was the writer on Alien, so kind of makes sense. And yeah, this is a later film from Tobe Hooper, and yeah, it's definitely a cult movie. I know a lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people think it's bad and whatnot, as people said about a lot of later Tobe Hooper films, but I don't even know if the term guilty pleasure is appropriate. Because a lot of people don't like that saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
I already called Matthew McConaughey's romantic comedies trash, and I said shit flicks. So we're saying all the inappropriate terms today.
Anyways.
No, I was kidding.
Yeah. So the premise of the movie: a race of space vampires arrive in London and infect the populace, beginning an apocalyptic descent into chaos. Yes, that's the premise of this movie.
Yeah.
They're literally sucking the life force out of people.
Well, it's giving it what's promised.
I mean, if you missed out on that Blu-ray release from many years ago, you got your second chance now, and it is getting a new 2021 4K scan of the original camera negative, which I think all of these 4K upgrades are. So it's not like they're just taking the old stuff and putting it on a better formatted disc. No, they're actually giving us a better aesthetic to all of these. And I'm assuming with these re-releases, we're getting the same special features from those early releases. That would only make sense. Yeah. They don't really tell us that here. They just kind of give us blurbs from like Leonard Maltin saying, Life Force is a gripping melange of genres that's so bizarre, it's fascinating. Yeah. To quote Leonard Maltin.
But yeah, that's the Shout Factory stuff that there might be some other stuff, but we got so much to cover here. But next on, we're gonna move on to the Severin April releases, and we got three releases from them, and we got. Unfortunately, once again, Andrew's always ahead of me on this, but he watched some of this stuff. He also watched some of the Vinegar Syndrome stuff, so he'll have more to say about this than I will. But the three releases we got from Severin for April are Marty Guy's Massacre. We have the big sleazy Jack Wise double feature, and then we got Hey, Stop Stabbing Me. Which is a great.
That's my favorite
title. It's the best title ever. I love it. Hey, stop stabbing me.
I made so many jokes about that in my head all this week about like yeah, that's something that I would say if someone was stabbing me.
Or I would just be like, that. Like, stop stabbing me. I'd put an on it or something. Yeah. But so what did you check out from this slate?
But I was able to see about half of these releases because this is 3 releases, but 4 movies because one's a double feature. But Mardi Gras Massacre I saw, and this is a movie that is pretty much just as the title suggests. Mardi Gras is on the horizon, but there's somebody who's committing ritualized murders of prostitutes in New Orleans. Yeah. And he has this thing where there's this dude, kind of an older, suave guy. He just keeps going to like these brothels or, these clubs or whatever. And he's just asking like the people who run it, they ask, of course, they have a certain clientele or whatever. And he's asking them, I want your most evil, who's your most evil person, evil woman that I could, pay for essentially. Obviously the person thinks they're paying for sex, but he's paying to get them so he can murder them in a ritualized way. And that's kind of the premise of this movie. There's another side plot where this cop is in a relationship with the prostitute as well, and what ends up happening, these bodies keep getting dumped at like the train tracks, and then the cop's got to figure out who's doing it.
Yeah.
That's the plot of the movie. That's it. I mean, you'd think I'm spoiling it, but that is literally what happens. There's nothing. It wasn't really anything there in terms of you don't really learn why or what type of cult this person is in or anything like that. It's just, that's kind of it. There's kind of a cheesy gore factor to it and whatnot. The movie's not that long in terms of runtime. It's 96 minutes, and you just kind of, get that. And you get a few special features here. You get an interview with the director, interview with an actor, interview with the actress. It's certainly one that's in line with a lot of Severin releases.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it looks a heck of a lot better than the version I saw, which may or may not have been a VHS rip. And I think it is, if I'm reading here, it is part of the video Nasties that we talked about a little bit with Kat Ellinger earlier on. And so it's been banned in the UK, I'm assuming for a long time. But it's now getting a new 2K master.
Yeah, from the best surviving elements.
Yeah. Oh, look what it says. Best surviving post-Katrina elements.
Wow.
Hurricane Katrina, I guess, must have wiped out some type of
yeah,
archive.
I was listening to the Severin Films podcast, and you should always go over there, and you can they always do an episode for their new releases, and they can always give you great context of why they chose these films and all that stuff. And they talked about how the filmmaker wasn't even aware that the storage unit that he kept this stuff in, the elements in, was completely destroyed, by Hurricane Katrina. And so there was barely anything surviving. So
I'm fascinated to where they found the elements afterward, because if that was where the original stuff was, they must be using some type of dupe or something.
But yeah,
that's fascinating.
But it looks like this double feature is also from the same director, Jack Wise.
Yes, I just noticed that actually. Yeah. So this double feature is called the Big Sleazy Jack Wise Double Feature. And I was able to watch the first film in here, which is called Crypt of Dark Secrets. I don't know why this is called sleazy. It wasn't that sleazy of a movie. It's a 71-minute movie that they're dubbing is 71 minutes of supernatural sleaze. I guess because it does have voodoo magic, and it takes place entirely in a swamp.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of random nudity in it, I guess. And so I guess that's why it's sleazy. But what happens is there's this guy living in the swamp, and he's a Vietnam veteran, and he just lives out there by himself. And I guess some couple of local people find out that he's basically just hoarding his money on his property. So they decide to go out and get his money, and in the process they kill him. And this woman, this voodoo witch type woman, resurrects him to get vengeance.
Yeah.
And that's the plot of the movie.
Sounds amazing.
And it is as low budget as you can get. It's just, like I said, the entire movie is pretty much just set in the swamp, and indoors in places. That is it. It is super, super low budget. And apparently it's being newly mastered from the original negative, so they got that kicking around.
Nice.
And when it comes to special features, there's just a trailer. That's it. So it's a bare bones release. I'm assuming they couldn't get much when it comes to the people who worked on the movie.
Yeah.
As for the next film, I wasn't able to watch it. It's called Death Brings Roses, which seems a lot more in line with the kind of sleaziness of this double feature.
Okay.
Apparently it says thought lost for more than 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Death Brings Roses.
All right.
Is the Big Easy Auteurs epic of pimps, hookers, mob bosses, and double crosses. A stupefying parade of performances by non-professional local actors. Amazing selling pitch by Severin on that.
Yeah, and then it looks like it's got some pedigree when it says real life Hollywood tough guy Scott Brady from Johnny Guitar, Oscar winning Broderick Crawford, All the King's Men, and Hermione Gingold from Gigi,
which is Best Picture winning film. I think Gigi
co-star in this French Quarter crime saga. So it's got a pedigree to it, and it's that's interesting. It's one of them things where it's like, dude, you could be surprised. this could be a very interesting film. So,
I mean, the covers for all the Severin releases always sell them pretty hard on what you're getting.
Oh yeah. But and this last one, which we love the title, "Hey, Stop Stabbing Me."
Hey, stop stabbing!
Hey, anything about this one you can talk about? Did you watch this?
I did not get to watch this, but this is actually getting the most in the way of special features.
Yeah.
You're getting intro. There's a commentary. I think there's a bonus feature film on here too that gets its own special features.
And this is a pretty recent film, isn't it? Well, not super recent. It's 2003, but it's definitely a newer film.
Oh, compared to what Severin typically releases, yes.
Yeah.
I know they did release, we talked about it with Kat Ellinger in that box set, All the Haunts Be Ours. They did that documentary is from like 2019.
Yeah. And of course, there's a couple films that are pretty recent too. But for the most part, they seem to get a lot of stuff from the 80s or 90s. Or even earlier than that. So,
it sounds like this is a super, super low budget indie film. Just reading I don't know if you got a chance to take a look at the,
the trailer,
the blurb here.
I mean, I'm just watching the trailer. It looks super low budget. So yeah, I mean, it's.
I think this may have been shot on a mini DV camera in 2000.
Oh yeah.
Goodness gracious. Mini DV cameras are basically the first digital camcorders you could get back in the early 2000s for home use, personal use. Apparently this movie's been long out of print. It's been lovingly remastered in HD with all new reunion featurettes, audio commentary, short films, and much more. Yeah, they really, I guess, were able to go carte blanche and get everything when it comes to this director and co-writer Josh Miller.
Nice. Well, it's nice when you can still, when you can bring something to life that has probably got nobody's eyes on it. It's.
Yeah, I think. Okay, let me. Yeah, it looks to be. I think because they wrote it in the. This Josh Miller, he's the writer on the new Sonic the Hedgehog films.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a connection.
Yep, because they mentioned that in the blurb, and I'm like, I gotta look this up. Yes, he is.
Amazing. He came from "Hey, Stop Stabbing Me" to Sonic the Hedgehog. Wow, what a transformation.
Yeah, he's got 25 writing credits on IMDb, and the newest one is Sonic the Hedgehog, which came out in 2020, and then Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is in post-production. What an incredible journey.
That's a incredible journey.
I almost want to buy this release just so I can hear, get the origin story of Josh Miller.
Yeah.
And all of his early work. It seems like all of his early work's in here.
Yeah, that's nice. But, all right. Well, now that we've got through Severin, let's run on over to Vinegar Syndrome. We got, of course, a big slate of Vinegar Syndrome and partner label titles. And so running down the list here, and I'll let Andrew fill in after we've run them down.
Nice.
Vinegar Syndrome March releases. We got Reform School Girls. Then we have Talons of the Eagle, which is an amazing title. We have
it really is.
Also, it looks like a double feature of X-Ray and was that
Schizoid? What a title!
Yeah. And then lastly, we got another double feature of Hard Rock Zombies and Slaughterhouse Rock. So we got some very eclectic, weird titles here. What was you able to check out, Andrew?
I watched all of these.
Oh man.
Yeah, I went full Vinegar Syndrome hard for this episode, as I always like to do with their releases, just because there's so many of them that I just try to go one by one or find as many as I can. And I started off with Hospital Massacre, which is it's one of the movies I think that has alternate titles.
So that wasn't two movies; they're just alternate titles.
No, they
are.
They are. Yeah, X-Ray, Hospital Massacre, and X-Ray are the same movie.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it's the original title was Hospital Massacre, but they decided to change it to X-Ray for the official title or whatever.
I got you.
And I don't know why, because Hospital Massacre is such a better title than X-Ray.
Yeah.
Because Hospital Massacre is literally what happens in the movie. It's this woman goes for a routine checkup at the worst damn hospital I've ever seen, where there are just like patients walking around. Nobody knows like where anything is or what's going on. There's like a whole floor that's just under construction, and there's no security there at all. But there's this person who's like just committing murders.
Yeah.
Like he's dressed up in like head to toe in like full surgeon outfit, and he's just like killing people seemingly randomly. And you get a few scenes of that. But what's fascinating about this movie as it goes along, this woman is just she kind of gets sucked in further and further to the madness of this insane hospital, to the point where it starts feeling like a quasi David Lynch crazy movie. It really does, like a David Lynch slasher movie, and you find out why, what the connection is and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of your worst nightmare if you're afraid of hospitals, because hospitals are already probably one of the scariest places in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it just kind of really goes full tilt in terms of that. At one point she gets admitted as a patient because there may be something wrong with her, and they won't really tell her, and they won't let her leave or anything like that. And it's like, that stuff could maybe happen. I don't know. But it was a really kind of, solid slasher, early 80s slasher. I think it came out in 1981. Was it 81 or 82? Let me see. 1981.
Okay.
So so X-Ray and Hospital Massacre are the same film. I actually got confused whether these were like alternate titles as well.
Yeah.
But after that, I watched Schizoid, which is yet again not a great title. Schizoid is what happened. This movie actually stars Klaus Kinski is this doctor, and he's like a psychiatrist, and his patients start getting killed, and so he's getting blamed for it, but you're also trying to figure out who the killer is. You know what shocked the hell out of me when I was watching this movie? Christopher Lloyd is in this movie.
Christopher Lloyd
as a character. And this was around the time where he was on Taxi, because this is like 1980, and I know Taxi was on, and of course he was on that show amongst that great cast. And I'm like, is that Christopher Lloyd? Yeah, he plays like some random handyman who's like also one of the patients as well. Yeah. And the movie has this whole thing with Klaus Kinski and his daughter have this odd relationship where she's like kind of super jealous of the other women in his life, and it's an odd film. There are Klaus Kinski sex scenes in this movie, Steven. I don't know. I just want to warn people about that. If you're squeamish about those certain things. Yeah. And what another kind of slasher type of movie. Yeah. And it's just one of those.
What I could say about this set, these are 4Ks too.
This is a 4K release.
Yeah, both of these are getting. So there's 2 4Ks in this set and 1 Blu-ray. I'm guessing mostly for features.
I think Hard Rock Zombies and Slaughterhouse Rock is a regular release. No, hold on. Let me go to. I have so many tabs up. Yeah.
Them are Blu-ray releases, but
everything's a Blu-ray release except for this for Schizoid and X-Ray. Yeah. Which I would have loved to, ask Brad Henderson why they decided to put these on 4K versus the other ones. Maybe it was like an Elements issue or whatnot, or maybe just a quality issue. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, they can only probably do so many 4Ks.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, it's.
I don't know why they chose these movies as opposed to this next double feature, which was Hard Rock Zombies and then Slaughterhouse Rock. Hard Rock Zombies. I was telling Steven the other day. This movie's basically just a 90-minute, mostly just a music video. Yeah. Where this, hard rock band travels to, this tiny, tiny town in the middle of nowhere, and the townspeople don't like them, and they kill them, and then they get resurrected as zombies, and then, the whole town starts turning into zombies. and that's the plot of the movie. But there's just music montages throughout 90% of the movie. It's just that's basically what it is. It's at one point there's like these sexual perverts like running around town. At one point, like one of the characters reveals himself to be Adolf Hitler, who's been hiding out in this tiny town for like 40 years. It is wild. It's just insane of a movie. It's so random. Hard Rock Zombies. And then we've got Slaughterhouse Rock, which is a great title.
Yeah, I like
Steven,
that. I like
if
that
you
one.
appreciate that title. What happens is this guy's getting like visions of this kind of like demon type vampiric monster creature, whatever. Basically, it's a similar plot to Nightmare on Elm Street, but just not as good. And basically, these kids have to travel to Alcatraz because they think that that's like the cause of all these nightmares that this guy keeps happening. Where this possessed former doctor from like the 1800s who was like a sadist and tortured people is trying to kill him and his friends. So they have to go to Alcatraz and like figure things out.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's like they just take the Freddy Krueger premise and run wild with it.
Well, it sounds like you had a good time with you.
Yeah, and then it gets better from there, Steven. I did see Talons of the Eagle.
Okay, this looks amazing, so you got to tell me about this.
If you want, so these DEA agents basically go undercover as like this crime boss's like bodyguards at his nightclub, and I'll tell you this crime boss is portrayed by James Hong, who is just great in the movie. And James Hong is probably like one of them. Like if you know who James Hong is, if you see him, because he's been in like hundreds of things. Yeah. I think that they were trying to give him, or fans want to give him an honorary Oscar just because he's been in 449 acting credits. So chances are you've seen him.
Yeah, Jesus, how could you not see him?
Yeah, it's like he did like voices in like Kung Fu Panda. He was in Big Trouble in Little China. He was in a scene in Blade Runner. I mean, he's been in damn near everything. I mean, just looking at his credits, it's just endless. But he plays this crime boss, so they have to go undercover. But first, they have to train as martial artists, where they have to learn like this special this special martial art move, which I think is called like Talons of the Eagle or something like that. I don't know. It was just so. It's such an odd movie.
Billy Banks plays the martial arts expert.
No, Billy Banks is one of the cops.
Or is he one of the cops? Okay.
Yeah, Billy Banks and July Marie, who apparently was this Canadian action star at the time, who's basically the Canadian. Less version of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. Well, it says right here in this description, DEA agent and martial arts expert Tyler Wilson, Billy Banks.
Yeah, well, he becomes a martial arts expert after they go to like this martial arts boot camp because they have to win some tournament to then become this guy's like this mob boss's like henchman or whatever.
Of course, that's what you got to do.
They need to be like prove themselves or whatever because he's gonna be like hosting this martial arts tournament. Honestly, all of that is done in montage, and that whole plot line is like the first half an hour of the movie.
Gotcha.
It's not even like relevant.
All right.
And then it's them just like being undercover and like trying to like expose this crime boss and stuff. And of course they meet some woman who's also undercover as well, and they try to work with her. And then there's this big action sequence at the end with everyone doing martial arts stuff.
Cool.
That's the movie. It's
and then Reform School Girls is the last.
And then this honestly may be the best of the movies that I watched. It's like a more polished version of a John Waters film.
Okay.
And what happens is this young juvenile delinquent girl goes to this reform school, and there's this Nurse Ratched type person who's running it, she's not the warden, but she's basically like the warden's like underling. Like she runs the day to day, and the warden like is someone else. And this woman is terrible to them. Just like tortures them and makes them do like terrible work and stuff. And it's just awful. And the acting is over the top. It's supposed to be a school for juvenile delinquent teenage girls, and some of the actresses in it are clearly in their 30s and 40s. It's wild. And it's just and they're wearing scantily clad clothing for no reason, and they're just random nudity for no reason. It's such a wild movie, but it's so over the top in a very John Waters way that I was just like super entertained by it. I wasn't bored by it at all, and it's like kind of a take on the prison, a prison escape movie, and they try to escape at one point and all this kind of stuff. I really dug it. Like out of all of these releases, if I was recommending someone to grab something, Reform School Girls is the best one.
All right.
I'm glad to see that it's getting a new 2K restoration. It's getting some special features as well, including interviews with looks like producer. And I would have loved to have gotten interviews with like some of the actresses in it as well, but I don't think they were able to.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's it for the Vinegar Syndrome proper. And now let's move over to the new partner label releases. And of course, we got a ton of them here. And
there's like 11 of them, aren't there?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But we got from Culture Shock releasing. We have Slash Dance, not Flash Dance. Slash Dance.
I know Slash Dance.
Yeah, Slash Dance.
What a great title.
We have from the Canadian International Pictures label, The Other French New Wave, Volume 1. And that includes 3 films, The Cat in the Bag, The Merry World of Leopard Z, and Yule 871. And then we have from Yellow Veil Pictures, we have The Long Walk. And then from label Canny, we have Ode to Nothing. And from Factory 25, we have Hellaware. From Circle Collective, we have Project Space 13. And then from AGFA, we have Pathogen. And then from ETR Media, we have Scream Queens. And then we have Alternate Innocence with Stop Zamilla. And then, like I said, there's a ton of these. Music Box.
You're getting there.
Music Box Films has, was it Sybil?
I think it's Sybil.
Yeah, Sybil.
But not the Sybil people think of.
Yeah. And then lastly, we have from Saturn Core Audio and Video, we have Backwoods Marcy. So,
indeed.
And you said you watched all these?
No,
okay. I was going to say, I was like, damn, goddamn you.
I didn't have that type of time. I did catch a couple of these. I'll say this. If anyone's looking to pick any of these up, highly, highly recommend Ode to Nothing.
Okay.
I was telling Steven this earlier off camera. Ode to Nothing is kind of a combination of Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, as well as the movie Swiss Army Man.
Okay.
Basically, this woman who runs like a family-owned funeral home, and one day she takes in this kind of random dead body from like these guys who are just like, hey, if anybody comes asking, don't tell anybody about it. Don't go asking questions, anything like that. You really don't know anything about it. And she takes it in. I think they just kind of found this dead body.
Yeah.
And she takes it in, and she begins kind of having this very macabre, very grotesque, very interesting relationship with it. And in kind of a pseudo mother-daughter way, because it's an older woman's, corpse. And the reason why so you have that's the Swiss Army Man relevance to it, because you're diving into kind of all kind of elements and themes in that regard. But why I compare it to Roma is because it's a very slow, very methodical, very artistic film, very understated film. There's not a lot of dialogue in it that's explaining things. You're kind of just seeing things in a very, true, movie fashion of, visuals telling the story. And it's shot in 1:3:7:1. It has the usual kind of toned down color palette as well. It's a Filipino film. So it's, it's not in English, for those of you interested, but it's really, really good. It came out recently. I think it came out 2019, maybe later than that. And you're getting actual special features directly from the no, it came out in 2018, sorry, but I think it only got distribution very, very recently. Dwayne Baltazar is the director.
Okay.
And I think you get an audio commentary with him, which I really want to hear his thoughts on the movie. Oh, you get an interview, sorry. There's a 19-minute interview, and then it comes with a booklet with an essay, and then that's about it. But I just kind of really fascinated by this movie. I highly recommend it to people. And then I watched Hellaware, which is a movie that's just kind of a satire of like the New York art, like super aristocratic socialite art industry, and basically like this kid who's trying to break into like the photography and the kind of the art house game is he finds these kind of these young rappers from Delaware, these kids, I think they're teenagers, but they're kind of like the Insane Clown Posse, but different.
Yeah.
And he starts like hanging out with them and taking pictures of them, and they end up like the pictures are really good to the point where like artists will like want to put them in galleries and stuff like that, and he kind of gets swept up in the art world that he hates so much, so you get kind of becoming what you feared the most, but the whole thing's just a satire about like that world being so fake and so nonsense and BS. And the movie's really short. It's a very short film, but I thought it was very, very good.
Okay.
And I did get to see 2 films out of that that the other French New Wave, which is kind of like this, I guess in the 60s, they kind of had that new wave flavor kind of.
Well, obviously there's a lot of French-speaking people in Canada, so like
yes,
a lot of that culture
these are
maybe over
French-Canadian films.
Yeah.
I think the first film, The Cat in the Bag, was made in like Montreal or something like that, which of course is very French Canadian. Usually Quebec and Montreal, those are the more French speaking areas of Canada. And The Cat in the Bag, it looks like someone saw Breathless and wanted to make a Canadian version of Breathless. That very much is kind of what it is. And I know a lot of people have said that. I was reading some reviews on Letterboxd about it, and they kind of said that's where I got that idea from. And once I was watching the movie, I'm like, yeah, it is.
So is everybody a little bit more polite to each other in this movie? Is that what it is? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's what's interesting about this movie is, it has a lot of those Breathless elements to it, but there's a lot more in it as well. And it's a movie. I use this phrase a lot. It's kind of a movie about nothing, but also trying to comment about everything, specifically of the time. Like the young man who we kind of follow throughout the movie is just kind of bemoaning the times, and he wants to be like a journalist, kind of exposing the culture of the time. And then he goes to like this paper, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't print this. This isn't facts. This is just what you're thinking. You're not making it accessible to people and all this stuff." And there's just a lot of just ruminating about culture and society and raising issues, but not really having any answers to any of those problems. So kind of stuck, kind of catch-22. But I did see The Merry World of Leopold Z, completely different film. Basically, the snowplow driver is trying to like plow out people during this massive winter storm, and you're just kind of following him throughout his journey of trying to do that. But he's also like trying to get like gifts for his family, and he's trying to meet them at midnight mass, so you don't really know if he's going to get there in time. And there are just scenes of people talking about sheer nonsense. Like there's this one scene with his friend who he gives a ride to, and the guy's just going on and on and on about nothing that's relevant at all. And it's like, it's very relatable in that sense, because sometimes you just encounter people who like to hear the sound of their own voice, and they just talk about sheer nonsense for endless amounts of time, and you don't want to be rude and tell them to shut up, I don't really care, but you just let them talk. I think George Carlin had a whole joke about that in his last stand-up. One of his last stand-ups, where it's just like, you ever just like want to try to end a conversation and you don't really know how to end it and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very good, very, very, tight movie. It's not quite a comedy, I would say, but there's comedic moments in it, and it's kind of like a slice of life film, but lighter.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah, that was my journey through all of these films. I wish I would get a chance to see all of them in time for these
Well, yeah,
episodes, but a lot of them aren't available to see.
Some of them are hard to find, and
general.
dude, you watch so much. I'm just glad that you're able to. And I'm thankful that you're able to do that much work for the podcast. So, but one thing I will mention before we end here, Stop Zemila is actually a Ukrainian film, and of course, all the things going on over.
It is, yes.
Yeah, all the things going on over there. Our hearts go out to them that are dealing with that. And apparently, from what I heard this, Sister Hyde does the work on this. And of course, anybody, she said in a post I saw on Twitter that there is donations going out for people that buy this movie. I think it was like for every person that buys this, like a certain percentage goes to charity. And I think Andrew.
Yes, she did mention that when these were announced on her Twitter. And yeah, I always wanted to get to the post about that, but I'm assuming it was much earlier in the week. Oh no, I found it.
Okay, good.
It says, I had the honor of collaborating with Altered Innocence on their release of the gorgeous Ukrainian coming-of-age film Stop Zemlya. Altered Innocence will be donating $1 for every copy sold to a Ukrainian charity.
Yeah. So that's a great thing that they're doing there, and so if I've heard that this is a good film, just looking into it. So even if this is a good way to help bring money to a cause that really needs it right now. So if that's something you're interested in doing, I just want to put that information out there, and so there you do with it what you will. But and
we know from Sister Hyde that all the films she works on are really good films.
Oh yeah, she does great. And
so
she does great work.
They're definitely worth checking out.
Definitely. But that is it for our episode this week. Thanks, Kat Ellinger, for coming on again. She didn't give out her information, but you can find her, I think, on Twitter. If you want to look up, keep up with her. She's probably got a web. I know she works through Diabolique Magazine, so you might be able to find her in there. But Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me in the Facebook group over there. You can find me or Andrew over there on the the private Facebook group that we have going on there for Chasing Labels. Please go over there and join, because we're going to start doing some more things that interacts with you guys out in the community. We're trying to build up a community for the podcast, and we're still tossing around ideas, but we're going to utilize the YouTube channel to do some of that extra content. And so yeah, just stay tuned, but please go over there and join our group so that you'll be ready for when that starts coming out. But you can also find me on the other Chasing Labels things, whether it be the Chasing Labels Twitter page or the Instagram, or you can follow me on my Letterboxd at Chasing Labels. You can also find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.